What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of A Couple of Subs. Thanks for tuning in to episode 1, season 4. I'm your host, Cody Crane. With me, as always, my lovely co-host, Kristen Crane, aka Kiki.
What's up, guys? Thanks for tuning in to another episode. So this episode is especially special to my heart. We are interviewing my dad, Robert Smith, owner of Glass Incorporated. He started it about 22 years ago actually.
Yep.
And super excited to get him on the show, finally getting him on the show. I know this story like the back of my hand. I love this story, and I'm really excited to share it with y'all. So we're just going to dive on in. So welcome to the show, Dad.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
I know, finally.
I know, I'm excited about this one.
I know.
for
So
sure.
is there a reason why I'm all the way down to the season 4?
Well, you're number 1 of season 4, though.
Oh, okay. Well, that makes
Yeah,
sense.
you're number 1.
We didn't want to come half-cocked. We
Yeah.
wanted to get a little practice before we came.
Right.
There you go. Okay. Well, I can appreciate that.
That was a really good answer, Cody.
Gotta be on my toes.
That's right. Okay, so let's just dive right on into this. Before we get started about talking about the business, I want to talk about where you came from. You know, I want to talk about Greenwood and how you grew up, and yeah, you just rock and roll with that one.
Well, like you just said, I'm from Greenwood. I'm a Delta boy, and of course, most Delta boys are loud. That's why y'all got me sitting back so far from this microphone, because I'm plenty loud. But anyway, I did grow up there in the Delta. It was in Greenwood, Mississippi. That's where my parents grew up there. My grandparents lived there. My great-grandparents lived there. So we've got a long history with Greenwood in the Delta, and still do today. We got a camp there, you know, that we go to a lot, and we still have that connection with the Delta. So we really like it. But I grew up there. Went to school, grammar school, all the way through high school while I was there, and then even went to the junior college, the local junior college, for a while I was there. And it was like growing up in Mayberry.
Yeah.
I mean, it was a little small town. I can still remember leaving the house open, and people in the neighborhood, kids just came in and out of the house, and it was never locked. And I can just remember the summers around the Greenwood and chasing the mosquito machines. Y'all too young to remember mosquito machines, but mosquito machines used to drive through the Delta and spray out this fog, and it was like create this huge fog, you know, and we rode behind it, and I think it was DDT. It was something that's probably going to affect me later in life. But anyway, we used to ride our bicycles behind it, and it was the coolest thing. But of course, being in the Delta, they got a lot of mosquitoes up there, and they got some big mosquitoes, so that was just something from my childhood. But anyway, I grew up there, typical small town upbringing where we played Little League ball, and you know, went basically to the same school our whole life until we went off to college. So anyway.
So well, I guess obviously you never met him, but our great-granddad, or my great-granddad, he was actually the mayor and the dentist of Greenwood, right?
He was, and I mean, he was born in I think it was 1887. I think is when he was born. So somewhere in the early 1900s, he was a dentist. He was also the chief of police there in Greenwood,
Oh, cool.
and the mayor of
I didn't know that
Greenwood.
part.
And I think he was all at the same time. Now Greenwood's not a big place now, so you kind of had to wear multiple hats when you grew up in the Delta.
He
anyway.
definitely did.
Yeah.
But he did, and so that was, and he was a big outdoorsman, which is kind of where we got all the things that we do today, where we hunt and fish, and we grew up with, doing that our whole life. My great-granddaddy was a hunter and a fisherman. My granddaddy was, my daddy was, and of course now I've been all my life. My kids, my grandkids, they all do that, and so it's just kind of like something that we've always.
It's in our blood.
It's just in
For
our
sure.
blood, and going to the camp is still a special thing for us to do up there at the camp. And now we got son-in-laws that they come up there and, you know, burn your players to the ground. But besides that, that's all
Son-in-law,
another
I'm a
story.
favorite son-in-law still.
Huh?
I gotta be.
Well,
Oh yeah, hands down.
Well, you got one, Mr. Robert.
well, you're right. I didn't think about that.
I gotta be the favorite.
No choice. That's funny. So yeah, talk about. So yeah, you grew up in Greenwood, and then granddaddy at one point he was in real estate. My grandfather was Bobby, and then he ended up kind of, however, opening up a glass company in Greenwood.
Well, before he was in the real estate business, he worked for the railroad, Illinois Central Railroad.
That's right.
And when I was born, I was actually born in Memphis, Tennessee, and he was working for Illinois Central at the time. And then we moved to Little Rock, Arkansas. We moved to Hattiesburg, moved to Jackson, and then back to Greenwood, all while he was with Illinois Central.
Wow.
And that was all before I was 4 years old. So when I got back to Greenwood, I was actually 4 years old, and he decided he wanted to do something different than move around all the time.
Yeah.
So he became a State Farm agent, and so he sold State Farm insurance for a while, and then he had two of his friends that owned a car dealership there in Greenwood, Chevrolet dealership, and that he was friends with till they all died. Lifelong friends that he had gone to school with, and this glass company came available for sale. It wasn't one glass company in Greenwood at the time, and the guy that owned it died, and his wife took it over, and after just a short time realized she couldn't really run it, and so she approached my daddy's friends that owned the car dealership about buying it. Well, they talked to Daddy about, why don't you come and go in partners with us on this glass company and you run it, because that's where we get our windshields from, and for our body shop, and we need this glass company here in Greenwood. So that's where Glass Incorporated actually started.
So y'all used to do auto glass, just not anymore.
Yeah, we don't do it anymore. But anyway, so when I was a kid and back in the 60s, Daddy had a glass shop right there called Glass Incorporated.
Really?
And he did that for a few years, and that really wasn't his calling. They did auto glass, but they also did commercial and residential work. And Daddy didn't have a construction background. In fact, my daddy wasn't very mechanically inclined. He wasn't very good at using any kind of tools or anything like that. So he was better on the sales side. And so the glass, he figured out pretty quick the glass business really wasn't for him. And
But he made a lot of connections through that.
But he did meet a lot of people, that's right. Yeah. And anyway, along about that time, and then this was in the late 60s, Benswanger Glass Company, which had started in Virginia, and it was growing. It was a big glass company that was started from Virginia and was growing all the way to Texas, and at one time had 100 branches.
Wow.
And they were buying up mom and pop glass shops around the South and turning them into Benswanger branches. So they came in and they ended up coming to see them about buying that glass shop. And of course, Daddy was looking for an opportunity because he really wanted to go in the real estate business.
Yeah.
That was his life dream, was to start his own real estate company. So when that opportunity came along for them to sell to Benswanger, he did, and he got to know the guy real well that Benswanger sent in to be the manager. And so anyway, he met him and actually sold him his first house.
I was about to say, he sold him a
He
house.
sold him a house right off the bat. We got salesmanship in our blood.
Yeah, that runs in our blood too, for sure.
So he couldn't miss that opportunity to make that sale.
Hey, you gotta capitalize.
So he did. He sold him a house. Well, his name was Paul Merrick. Well, Paul actually worked his way through the ranks with Benswanger, and then fast forwarding all the way through, I'm gone through high school, and now I'm in college, and I'm in the construction program up at Mississippi State. And when I got out and graduated, thinking I was going to work for a big general contractor, it was in 1981, and the S&L crisis had just occurred, and the construction was down, and nobody was hiring, and so all the people that graduated in the program before me that were going to work for big general contractors, well, none of the general contractors were hiring when I graduated. So I ended up moving back to Greenwood to my parents' house and was looking for a job, and really just kind of a fluke that I saw an ad in the Commercial Appeal, which was the Memphis paper, and they were looking for somebody who had sales experience and somebody who had construction experience, and for a sales job, and it was a company called Conair, and well, Conair, I didn't know who they were, but Daddy knew who they were because being in the glass business, they had bought products from Conair before. And today, we still buy products from Conair.
That's crazy.
And And so anyway, so I called and got my name in a hat for an interview, and actually was able to go meet with them, and they asked me to come to Memphis, and then fly from Memphis to Atlanta for an interview with Conair. Well, Daddy was trying to get me a job. You know, I was out of college. I'm back living at home. He was wanting to get me to get a job and get out of the dang house. So he says, you know what? I got a good friend, Paul Merrick, that's with Binswanger, who had since worked his way up through the ranks, and he was vice president of Binswanger at their corporate office in Memphis. So he calls Paul Merrick and said, hey, my son's going for an interview with Conair. I know Binswanger buys a lot of product from Conair. Can you put in a good word for him? And I need to get him a job. And so he said, sure, I'll be glad to do that. So he called the Conair guy and told him that I was coming and put in a good word for me. And then he told me, he said, look, when you get back from that interview, I want you to come by our office in Memphis because we may have an opening for you. So I did. So I went to Memphis, got on the plane, went to Atlanta, interviewed with Conair. They offered me the job. And I told them I was going to have to think about it because they wanted me to move to Michigan. You know, and that was a hard choice for a Mississippi boy. I'm going to tell you, to go to Memphis, to Michigan, that's a long way north, you know.
Yeah.
But anyway, so I come back and I meet with Paul Merrick there at the Binswanger branch, and I told him about my interview and I'd gotten a job offer. And he said, well, look, we've got an opening for somebody in our New Orleans office to be a project manager and an estimated project manager for our big office down there. And so he offers me a job the same day. And well, he wanted me to go to New Orleans. Conair wanted me to go to Michigan. And being a Southern boy, you know that wasn't a hard choice.
Easy
And
choice.
that was an easy choice. So I go to New Orleans, and that's how I ended up in the glass business. It was kind of a fluke that I did. And so I go down there and I work at the Binswanger office down there, and it was a big commercial office, and they had a lot of high-rise buildings going on at the time in downtown New Orleans. So I really learned big construction, you know, working there. And I love New Orleans, and I still love to visit New Orleans, but I didn't like living there. You know, I was a small town boy. I didn't like living in the big city and all the traffic and all that kind of stuff.
I know exactly what
And
you mean.
after a couple of years down there, I just heard through the company grapevine that there was a manager's job coming opening at Binswanger in Meridian, Mississippi.
Oh, wow.
And I was thinking, you know, my dad's brother lives in Meridian, Mississippi, and he knows everybody there. And so I finagled my way and got me my name in the hat for an interview, and I go up there for the interview. So I did, and of course I called my Uncle Eddie, which I miss him because he really helped me get that manager job there. Because he knew the manager at the Binswanger branch. They played cards together at the country club, you know. So it was kind of a way we got in to do that.
Who also, I think I've told you this before, Uncle Eddie owned the AM radio station WMOX in Meridian. So it's kind of, you know, the whole deal.
It's crazy how, like, just life and how you end up where you're at. I mean, whenever they say it ain't what you know, it's who you know, that's not exactly true, but
it's
people know people,
pretty,
and I mean,
pretty true.
You know, you're speaking on like, you got that interview there and got that interview there. Every one of those was lined up by somebody that knew somebody.
Well, they got me in the door.
Yeah.
And once I got in the door, it was up to me to do it from there.
That's what I'm
But
saying.
they got me in the door.
It's not just like what you know.
You can
and
lead a
it's
horse
who
to
you know.
water.
Yeah. Like, you can get a foot in the door, but you got to do it yourself.
Right.
You know, one other thing before you continue on with this story real quick, one of my favorite parts about you, after you got this job at Binswanger, you told grandmama, your mom, you're like, well, looks like I'm going into the glass business. And she looked at him and she said, well, the best part about glass is that it breaks.
She
I love
she
that.
did tell
That's
me
my
that.
favorite. Like,
That was your
I
mom
love
that
it.
said that?
Yeah, my mother said that. She said, looked at me and said, well, the good thing about glass is it breaks. So people are always gonna need glass. So.
I've always heard Kristen say
Mm-hmm.
that. I thought it came from you. It came
No,
from your mom.
that was my mother said that.
Yeah, good woman. Great woman.
So you just got your first job there in Meridian. How did all that evolve into what you got going on today?
Well, there again, it's just kind of some of those things that come along that happen to you that you're not really suspecting, but it did. And anyway, so I get the job, and the manager that knows my uncle, was the manager there that hired me. And so I go in there, and after a couple of weeks, and finding a place to live, and finally getting moved from New Orleans up to Meridian, I come down there on Monday morning for my first day of work, and the manager said, "Come here, I need to talk to you." And I said, "Okay." And he said, "I need to let you know that I've resigned from the company, and I'm going to work for Sammy Davidson and start a new hollow metal door business with Sammy Davidson." He said, "So you're going to be in charge until they hire a branch manager."
That was day one?
That was day one. So
Oh,
I'm like 25 years old, and all of a sudden I'm the head guy at the branch there in Meridian. And he says, "That office over there in the corner, that's your office." He said, "That file cabinet's got every job that we got going on in it. And I'm going to Northwood to play cards, and if you need me, call me down there at Northwood." And he leaves me. So there I am, day one, going, oh crap, what's that?
Here it is, get after it.
Now I'm all of a sudden at 25 years old, I'm running this branch that I really don't know how to run at that point. And so I just go in there to my office, and then he introduced me to all the people there before we left.
I was going to say,
so at least I knew
everybody's
everybody's name, before we left. But so he does, and the next morning I get up and I'm there bright and early, like I always did, and I was first one there, and I'm kind of going through this file cabinet, and I'm looking to see what kind of jobs they got going on and all that kind of stuff, because that was back before computers. I mean, we didn't have everything on computer like we do today. It was all files.
Back when blueprints were blue.
Yeah, that's exactly right. But so I'm sitting there looking through it, and my office was right off of the showroom, but I couldn't see the front door. I couldn't see who came in, who could come in the front. But anyway, so I'm in there, and I'm wondering what kind of mess I've got myself into in this situation, and somebody comes in the front door and want to know where the manager is, and they were mad, and I could hear all of it going on, but I couldn't see who it was or anything. So I'm sitting there, and they said, "Well, sir, the manager is resigned. He's no longer here." Well, he won't know who in the hell's in charge. And I said, "Ooh, he's mad. I don't know who it is, but he's mad." And they said, "Mr. Smith is." Well, I'd never been, I'm 25. That's the first time I ever remember being called Mr. Smith, But I hear somebody coming to see Mr. Smith, and they're coming across the showroom, across that tile floor, and I can hear them feet coming. And so anyway, I said, "Oh crap." So anyway, I get out of my desk and I go up and I meet him at the door. And this guy gets up there and he tells me, "You're supposed to be down on Anderson Hospital." It was Bill Yates, is who it was. And Bill Yates, who's the senior guy at Yates Construction Company, and back then he used to run jobs back in that day and time.
You didn't want to see him come to your office.
I didn't know who he was. I had no idea who he was. But anyway, he came up there. Well, he let me have it. He told me that we were behind schedule. We ain't had men on the job in a week, and he won't know what I was going to do about it. I said, "Well, Mr. Yates," I said, "I don't know anything about the Anderson Hospital job. This is my second day." And I said, "But I'll find out." And in fact, I don't even know where Anderson Hospital is. Meridian, Mississippi is kind of a small town, but I hadn't even seen Anderson Hospital yet. And I said, "But I'll find out what's going on. I'll get you some people down there, and I'll take care of it." And he said, "Well, you see that you do." And he stormed down there. And I went to found that little file cabinet, and I found that Anderson Hospital file, and I went, got my little book together, and went out to my truck, and before I left, I said, "Can y'all tell me how to get to Anderson Hospital?" And they said, just get on 22nd Avenue and head north, and then when it dead ends into the hospital. So I did, and I went up there and went around behind, parked, and found where the construction site was, and went in there and found the superintendent, and the superintendent, which y'all are too young to know, but his name was Wallace Walker, and he was an old-time superintendent that Yates had for a long time, and thank goodness he was a kind old soul. And I went in there and I told him why I was there, and that Bill Yates had just chewed me out, and he said, he kind of put his arm around me and said, "Come on, son, I'll show you what y'all need to do."
Honesty.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, thank goodness he just took me under his wing, and he walked me around the job site and said, "Well, y'all still need to do this, you still need to do that, you need to do this." And anyway, over the next few days, we were able to go in there and kind of knock it out and finish it. Well, the next little project that popped up, that Yates Construction needed something on, well, Bill wanted me to attend to it.
'Cause
He
you took
wanted,
care of him
he
last
wanted
time.
to talk to me on it. He didn't want anybody else to handle it, he wanted me to do it, because I took care of him on that one, and then I took care of him on the next one, and on the next one, and, well, anyway, that was in the early '80s, and at that time, Yates was a relatively small contractor. I mean, they were doing little hospital additions, little bank buildings, a little school or school addition, and that's kind of what they were doing. And anyway, so we just kept doing work, more and more work for him, and he would call me, and I'd go do the glass work for him, because Meridian was fairly close to Philadelphia, which is where where Yates Construction was located. And so I just got to know them. I got to know all their folks, and their company started growing. And then early in the '90s, he calls and says, Robert, I got a job up in Tunica, Mississippi. It's going to be a casino, and it's on a barge, and I've got to have this bank of doors, and I need you to get me a price on it immediately. I need you to meet me up at the job site up at Tunica tomorrow. And I did. So I took off and went up there.
Well, hold on, let me stop you right there. But you're not with, at the time of this story, which you're about to tell, you're not with Benzwanger.
I'm not.
Right.
No, I'm not. I
Right.
was not at Benjamin. This was, we kind of fast forwarded
Yeah.
this a number of years later. But
So you kind of fast forwarded to the casino era, which we
Right.
talked about on the show before, which that was huge for everybody around
Yeah.
our area in Mississippi. But between getting thrown to the wolves and meeting Bill for the first time, between then, you decided to leave Benzwanger. What was that like?
well, I did kind of skip that.
We'll get back to the Tunica story, but I
that
do want
spot.
to touch on this next part.
Well, anyway, so I was just a young guy there at Benzwanger, and we were doing pretty good. We actually, out of 87 branches, we got branch of the year when I was there running.
Your first year?
The second year.
Second
Our
year?
first full year. Our first full year, we
Hell
got
yeah.
branch of the year out of 87
25
branches.
years old.
And well, by that time I was 26, but we did really good. And
Yeah.
we going to the sales meeting, I got the pat on the back by all the big wheels and all
That's
that kind of
awesome.
stuff. So that was kind of neat. But then Benzwanger started going through some changes, and they got bought out by a company called ACI. And ACI was an Australian-owned company that was a huge glass company in Australia. It bought the whole Benzwanger organization,
Wow.
which was 87 branches at that time. And they came over, well, immediately, of course, it was a big corporate world at that point, and they came in and we started making, all kind of changes like any big corporation would do.
Yeah.
And
I've seen it happen.
anyway, so I really kind of got, I kind of got to the point where I was feeling like I was just a number. It was a lot of employees. It really didn't matter what you were doing. You were just a number to those guys. And really what the straw that broke the camel's back with them for me was that I'd sold a bunch of work. We had a big backlog. Big backlog then was maybe $700,000 or $800,000 worth of work, but we had a big backlog of work, and we only had a handful of installers there in Meridian at the time. And the big company comes in and they called me one day on Monday and put me on a conference call and said that according to our statistics, at a branch this size in a city the size of Meridian, that we have determined that you've got too many employees, and you need to get rid of 2 of them by Friday.
Wow.
And I said, well, I can't get rid of 2 of them right now. I said, we need 2 more or maybe 4 more to do all this work we got coming up. They said, well, what you got to get rid of 2 people.
Our statistics.
So come that Friday, I'm going, the hell with what they say. I got to get these damn jobs done. And so I didn't let anybody go. Well, that next Monday, I get a call, said, hey, we didn't see you send any, who are you letting go? I said, I'm not letting anybody go. I said, I told y'all when I was on the phone, we got more work that's starting right now, that we got material that needs to be installed right now. We need more people right now. We don't need less people. And they runs through this statistic thing again with me, and just a big corporate type attitude
Probably
about
never put a piece
it. It
of
says,
glass
well,
in the
come
freezer.
this Friday, you need to have 2 people send in who the 2 people you're gonna let go, or we're gonna come do it. come that Friday, I didn't send nobody in. We still needed work done. Well, the next Tuesday morning,
Yeah,
I had two guys pull up in a black car from Memphis.
Really?
You know, from the corporate office that came down there
Couple suits.
yeah, called me in the dang office and let me have it. And of course I showed them all the work we had going on. And I said, what y'all had asked me to do that makes no sense. Why would I do that right now? That's going to hurt the company. That's not going to help the company. And anyway, after that, we had to let 2 people go that week, or that day. And
They weren't
and
leaving without it. They was trying to make a point.
At that point, I said, I've got to find me something else. I said, I am not going to be able to work in this kind of atmosphere.
Yeah.
You know, I said, that's just stupid what they were doing. So anyway, I was still working. I wasn't doing anything. And I had met this guy there in Meridian and it was really just kind of a fluke that I met him. This guy's name was Sammy Davidson. I don't know if y'all ever heard of Sammy Davidson. Christian's heard of him.
If you're from
being
Meridian, you know who Sammy Davidson is.
I've heard the name, and I don't live there.
But Sammy was this guy that he founded. The first thing I remember that he founded was St. Louis Blowpipe, but he also founded Structural Steel. He founded Magnolia Steel. He founded Southern Pipe. He founded Southern Electric. I mean, and I could just go on and on and on of the companies that they had founded. And what he would do is he would find somebody who was good in a particular business and basically start a business and hire them to run it. And back them and let them grow it into whatever they could grow it into, and at some point in time sell it back to them, you know.
Yeah.
And that same thing had happened with all those big companies that I just mentioned, you know. And so he starts calling me and wanting to start a glass company. Well, I didn't really know who he was at the time. I didn't really know the whole story about him at the time, you know. And so I'm thinking, well, this guy wants me to go start a glass company, you know, for him, and wants to kind of give me some kind of profit sharing deal, and you know, and I'm going, that all sounds good, but I don't know who this guy is. And so I talked to my Uncle Eddie about it, and I said, Uncle Eddie, I said, do you know Sammy Davidson in town? I said, he's wanting me to come and start a glass company for him. He said, hell, you better do that. And he told me about all these other companies that he had helped done. He said, yeah, you better go do that tomorrow. You need to call him right now. So anyway, he was calling me, wanting to take me to dinner to talk about it. So I called him back, and I said, well, Mr. Davidson, I said, I'll be glad to go to dinner with you and talk about it. And he said, okay, well, I'm gonna come by and pick you up from work. What time will you be through? And it was 5:30 or so that afternoon. And so he comes to get me and picks me up. And he comes in, he shows up in a Volkswagen thing. You know what a Volkswagen thing is? It looks like
the little beach car.
It looks like a little German a little German army car or some kind of deal. And he comes pulling up in that, and I mean, this guy that I'm thinking he's gonna pull up in a limousine or something, you know, all the stuff he was involved in. And he comes in that little Volkswagen Rabbit, or thing, it was called a thing, I mean.
Yes, sir.
But anyway, he comes and gets me, and I get in it, and we head out, and we go over, get on Highway 39, and I'm thinking, he must be taking me to Northwood Country Club. You know, I said, at that point, I'm 26 years old. I never even been to Northwood Country Club, but I know he's heading in that direction. And we're riding along, and he's kind of talking to me, and we get up down there by where North Hill Street intersects Highway 39, and you got to take a left to go to Northwood Country Club. And anyway, so he's coming up to the red light, and all of a sudden he gets over in the right lane and turns in and pulls right into the Hardys. He pulls, that's where I thought he was taking me to Northwood, and he's taking me to Hardys. And so we pulled in there, and he parked. He said, "Come on, Robert." Said, "They got good ice cream here." So we go in there, and I basically have this interview with him at Hardy's restaurant eating ice cream. So when we get in there, and he says, "Now, son, you go and get anything you want." I said, "Oh, okay, I'll take number 3 then." You know. So. Anyway, it was kind of he was a really unique. He was a really unique character, you know. But he was really down to earth, and he carried. If you ever met Sammy, he always had a collared shirt on that had a big pocket on it, and that pocket would be full of all kind of notes, and I mean he'd have all kind of stuff to do with all these businesses, and he'd have it all stuffed in that front pocket.
Little pocket.
But anyway, so we met it, and he told me what he wanted to do, and I said, you know what? I said, I'm gonna do that. So I go and I turn my notice in with Ben Wanger, and we go over there and we start this glass company. And
So at that time that, eating ice cream at Hardee's, was he kind of upfront with you, like, I want you to run this business, like you said, it done with others, make it whatever you can, and eventually I'm gonna sell it back to you. Was that part of the front?
well, he may have not got all the way to the sell it back to you part, but he did say, I want you to run it, and I want you to grow it, and then I want you to share in what we're gonna do in it.
Okay.
And I just had heard the story that he had done with all the other guys.
Yeah, I
all
was
the
just
other
curious kind of how that
folks. That's
conversation
why I was
went.
thinking,
Yeah.
somewhere down the road, I might end up owning this company. And so anyway, so I pulled the trigger and I go. I'm 26 years old and fairly, still really young in my career. And so we go over there and we start this glass company. We started in an old building that he owned right there in town. And I ended up hiring some of my folks that I worked with at Benchmark that I'd gotten to be friends with, who now still work for me today. The Mitchell Moffetts and the Billy Jones and the Dale Minshews and Max Lees and some of those guys that were all at Benchmark. Well, they all moved with me and came with me.
Really? How long, did you say how long were you at Ben's Winger?
Well, I started in 1981, and in 1985 is when I ended up going to
So you were there like 4 or 5 years?
about 5 years with Ben's
And
Winger.
you had that many people that worked for you, had worked for other people there too. I'm sure they were there when you got there, right?
Well, Ben's Winger?
Yeah.
Yeah, there was a lot. It was like Mitchell Moffett. He was a truck driver for Benswanger at the time, and while I was still at Benswanger, we hired Billy Jones and we hired Dale Minshew, and those guys are still with us today.
So
And they're
at 25, 6 years old, you had made such an impact on them that they're like, I'm gonna quit my job too.
well, I don't know about
that
where
kinda
the
says a
impact,
lot,
but we were
you
close
know?
to the same age,
Yes.
and
You're
and
being modest, I feel
not
like.
only will we will work hard during the day and we're good at glass work, but we leave and go fishing together too. So you know what I mean. We
Work
just
hard,
kinda-
play hard.
That's right.
So it was more of a
Friendship,
friendship thing too. And,
But they knew you were a good enough leader. They're like, yes, I'll quit my job to go,
Yeah, I'll come with
to
you.
go there to something that may or may not work out. But if Robert's going to do it, yeah, I'll quit my job and go do it. too.
well, of course, they were all 25, 26 years old too. And
Yeah,
at that
modest.
point, you don't think about the negative so much at that age. But so anyway, we do that, and everything took off. I went back and saw Bill Yates. I started getting work with Yates again with a new company, and unfortunately, 9 months later, before we ever really got the thing really up and running, Sammy died.
Oh,
And he passed away, and of course, when he passed away, he had so many businesses
it's all in his front pocket.
that the big corporation that it had become that owned all these businesses, which was made up of lawyers and accountants and all these people, they kind of circled the wagons, and anything that wasn't a Southern Electric or
You were a startup at that point.
something big. We were still a startup
Right,
company. We're
yeah.
9 months old, and it ain't really making a bunch of money at
Yeah.
this point. Although we were doing really good from a sales standpoint, we were just still so young. And so anyway, I just kind of could see the writing on the wall, and I said, well, my deal that I had with him is going away, and so I thought that I might look for. I need to be probably looking for something else. So I'm thinking at that point, there's nowhere else really to go in Meridian. I can't really go back to Benchmark because they had hired somebody to replace me. And there was really no other place to do glass work there in Meridian at that time. And so I'm looking in Jackson.
And I'm going to stop you there. So at that time, you find yourself unemployed. However, you took it, you made an opportunity out of it, and you joined like the EMBDC board and then the home builders. Isn't that
Well,
right?
that came a little later.
Okay,
That
my
kind of
bad.
came after the next step.
Okay.
So anyway, there I am unemployed.
Yeah.
And I'm relatively young, and I guess I was maybe 27 by this point. And so I'm wondering what I'm going to do next. I'm thinking I'm going to have to move to Jackson or Memphis or Atlanta.
Bobby ain't gonna let you come home.
or somewhere. And I can't go to Greenwood. You're right. I can't go back there.
Bobby ain't letting that.
So long about that time, a guy named Jimmy Baum, who owned the Mississippi Paint and Glass Company there in Meridian, he called me, and they wants me to come by and talk to him. Well, I kind of knew about them. They did auto glass and they did paint, you know. I said, well, he don't really do glass work, commercial glass work. And he called me and he wanted me to come talk to him. So I did. I went down there and talked to him, and he said, well, Sherwin-Williams had just built a building across the street from him. Sherwin-Williams was a national chain. His paint business was all of a sudden, just like most mom and pop paint businesses, were starting to get eaten up by all these big chains. And he said, so I'm really looking to close the paint business and start something different. He said, and I just thought maybe since you've got this commercial background with glass work, we could start as a commercial and city service glass business, and you could run it, and we'll grow it to whatever you can grow it to. I'll finance it, and we'll split the profits 50-50. I said, hell, I'll be here Monday.
Yeah.
so
You're
yeah,
telling me I get 50% of everything?
so he said, once we get it collected, we'll share it 50-50. I said, hell, I couldn't get there fast enough. You know? So anyway, so that next Monday I started and I took off. Of course, the first thing I did, I called Mitchell's and I called Billy's and Dale's and all the guys that I knew that I was gonna have to have some men to do it. And we put them together, and really over the next 10 years, we grew Mississippi Paint and Glass into the largest glass company in the state of Mississippi.
Wow.
And that's when I was on the board of ABC the first time, and
so this is from like the age 30 to 40?
No, like 27, 37.
27?
yeah, this was
37?
late 20s and on into my 30s, and
Wow.
you know,
So at this point, you've got Rob and Justin.
yeah.
Well,
Right, yeah.
so basically, I mean, by the time you were 40, you had grown an opportunity, which was nothing to start, but an opportunity. You grew up the #1 glass business in Mississippi from the time you were 27 to 37.
Well, that's when the casino part that we talked about a minute
Yeah, I
ago
was
popped
about
in,
to
and
say.
that had a lot to do with it.
Well, it's
That's why we grew like we
opportunities
did.
that were,
Having the Bill Yates connection,
advantage of
and he wanted us to come do that casino work, and back in that time, a glass company, if it did $1 million in sales in a year, that was a pretty big glass company around Mississippi. And that's about what we typically were doing at that time. Well, Bill calls me about that casino job that we talked about, and we go up there and we do it. Well, I gave him a price for this bank of doors, which was like $40,000 or something like that. And he said, you gotta, how quick can you get it? I don't really care how much it costs, I need to know how quick you can get it. So I found all that out and I rushed it up and we got it there. And anyway, before we left there, we had another million, probably $1.2 million or $1.3 million in change orders. We did mirrors, we did other glass work, we did brass work for them, we did whatever they were asking for. We did shower doors, we did all kind of stuff for them on that very first casino in Mississippi. And all of a sudden in one job, we did more than we had ever done in a whole year in glass work. And so Yates really started kind of taking off with that casino work. That's when I met your granddaddy.
Yeah, that's
You know,
what this, I was saying.
your
These
granddaddy-
stories sound familiar.
Well, your granddaddy and I talked about it.
Just ask, do you have to use a water level?
Well, I didn't, but I just sold it. I didn't, you know.
Yeah.
But being on that barge, what did have some challenges because we were building on a boat. You know, that thing, get stuff level was tough on it. But anyway, going to the job meetings, that's when I met your granddad.
That's crazy.
And I always thought he was the coolest guy because you could go on a job meeting, and of course, y'all been in construction, you've been in job meetings before, especially on a really fast track project, and you go into these meetings and it's got 30 or 40 people at it, and somebody's up there and he's barking and he's hollering at everybody who's behind and on schedule, and your granddad just always just kind of sat there real calm with his hands crossed like that. And I was just terrified that they was gonna get to me and be getting on to me about something, and he just always cool and calm, collected. You know, we'd go out, we'd get up and walk out there, and
Someone's gonna come up
hey
tomorrow.
man, said, I don't know how we're gonna get all this done that they want done. He said, well, we just gonna get done what we can get done. You know, he was just as calm about it. It didn't bother him a bit, and
Do your best.
and so I really kind of, and then I got to know your granddaddy over the years because we would be in jobs together, you know, So I knew him long before I knew your daddy, and so anyway, I really feel blessed about the people that I got to work with when I was a young guy. And being a young guy, some of these folks, like your granddaddy and others, Hoop Gibsons and others, I could keep on naming them, that would kind of take you under their wing, you know, and say, hey, you ought to do it this way, you ought to do it that way, you know, and they would give you advice and stuff. If they saw that you were somebody who was really trying and really doing, you know, good in your profession, they would help you, you know. And I've always appreciated that about that generation. Now, I'm gonna tell you, there's still people that do that.
I was gonna say,
I help people. I try to
I
help
feel like
people.
there's still some there.
It
Those
is.
that got helped are still helping people.
But it's
Yeah.
just, it doesn't happen as much as it used to. And
Everyone's too busy.
Mhm.
Everyone's too busy.
everything moves so
Yeah,
fast right now.
it's
They're
So
not. They're
It's a
not too
different
busy.
world. Well, I know, but it's a different
They're not too
world.
busy to let some guy say, hey, I'm about to have a real important phone call. Just come sit in the
Yeah.
corner and just listen.
Yeah,
That is
Yeah.
those things that are invaluable, you know?
yeah.
And if anybody was not listening to that, back up about 45 seconds and listen to what Mr. Roberts just said.
Exactly. So okay, so you've got the casino boom in Mississippi. That was huge for Mississippi Paint and Glass. I'm ready to dive into the glass ink part, and I know that you are too. But you know, Mississippi Paint and Glass, that had to end before glass ink started. So kind of let's
Before
get to
glass
that.
ink came
Yeah.
back.
Yeah, right. Mhm.
Bobby started way back.
He did.
and that's where the name came from, by the way. When
Right.
I was started thinking about starting this company,
That's
I knew
perfect.
that's what I was gonna call it, because
That's
it's real short, to the point. It states what you do.
Yeah.
Yep.
You know, it's glass.
Yeah.
You know, that's what we do. So anyway, I always liked that short to the point.
That's
Glass ink
perfect.
kind of had a little catch to it, a ring to it for me. So, but anyway, I was working at Mississippi Paint and Glass. We were busy as ever. I was on the ABC board, so I spent a lot of time doing that. And also, I was the president of the Home Builders Association there in Meridian, so I was really active in a lot of things. And one thing I do want everybody to know, being involved in those extra things outside of work, you're not getting a paycheck from that, but I'm telling you, you get the rewards from it, and it'll come to you when you're not even expecting it to.
Yeah.
You
I
know?
feel like you instilled that in her.
Yeah,
It's the contacts that you make. It's just the opportunities that will present itself to you somewhere down the road from somebody that you met. So I do highly recommend people being involved in things, especially in trade organizations that are supporting the industry that you're in.
That's right.
So anyway,
That's
here
how
I
we
am.
met.
I'm on the ABC board
Exactly.
again.
That's exactly how
Yep.
we met. Thanks, Dad.
That's how you got your favorite son-in-law.
There you go. You
Yep.
burnt my Polaris to the ground.
Thanks, ABC.
Oh.
But anyway, so we're everything's rocking and rolling with Mississippi Paint, and I was it had gotten to the point, you know, and you can appreciate this because your family's been in the subcontracting business a long time. It's a cash flow heavy business.
It is.
Because you're floating all this labor that you're paying for every week, and all this, a lot of time material that you're having to pay for before you get paid.
Oh, all the time.
And then you're waiting at least 30 days before you can even bill for the work that you've
That
done.
was back whenever you was working at Paint and Glass. So about 120 days now, Mr. Roberts.
Well, it has gone out, but anyway, it takes a lot of cash. You know,
It does now. I'm just kidding.
and to operate that kind of business, and the owner of the company at Mississippi Paint and Glass had taken all the good times that we had and all the money that we made, and he was buying Jaguar, and he's buying beach houses, and he was buying condos at Old Waverly, and he was really kind of living it up, and got to trying to keep up with some Joneses that was really hard to keep up with. And he got himself to the point where he couldn't pay me according to my contract, which was half of the profits once we collected it. He couldn't pay me and leave enough money in that business to support the business, to keep it cash flowing and support his lifestyle too. So what he thought it was going to be his out was that since I built this big company over the last 10 years, he's going to get rid of me. He said, I'll just get rid of Robert. I can run it now. It basically runs itself. He's got all these people and they can run it.
Good
and
luck.
so I go up to the Delta, got another Delta connection.
Yeah.
I go up there, I'm taking a contractor,
Yep.
duck hunting up there, to our camp up there for the weekend. Somebody I'd taken all the time. I'd gone up there, we hunted, I get back in, and on Monday morning, I'm there early, trying to get all my ducks in a row before the week gets going.
No pun
And
intended.
the owner walks in, and I'm surprised for him being there that time of the morning. He comes in and said, Robin, I need to talk to you. He said, I think I'm just gonna do it on my own from here on. Said, you need to clean out your desk. I said, what? He said,
That wasn't part of the deal.
he said, I'm gonna run it from now on. I'm just gonna take it over, and I can't afford you anymore. I said, so it just kind of floored me. I really wasn't expecting that at all.
That's a big
And
deal.
I'm 40 years old when that happens, and
I'm
it's a
ready.
little harder when you're 40.
I'm born.
You're born at this
yeah,
point,
okay.
so
Yeah.
anyway, so I said, okay. So I got my stuff and walked out there, and I saw Mitchell and Dale and Buddy and all the guys. It was early, so they were all getting stuff ready for the day, you know, and told them what had happened, and they said, well, we ain't working for him. I said, well, I'll be back in touch with you, you know, and I didn't have any idea what I was gonna do at that point, but I was also on the EMBDC board at that time, on the executive committee at that time. The EMBDC, East Mississippi Business Development Corporation. I'd been asked to sit on that board, and Hoot Gibson was the chairman of it, and he'd asked me to be on his executive committee, and it was Hoot Gibson and Manny Mitchell and Tommy Dulaney and Jimmy Alexander and with A&B Electric and anyway, all these, Bruce Martin, I think was
thank
on
God
there.
that you were involved.
So, and I was involved, so it
Right.
helped to be
Thank God,
involved. But
yeah.
anyway, I was around these guys all the time, and they were the movers and shakers of Meridian at the time. And I went in there, and the first person I went to see was Hoot Gibson. I said, Hoot, I got to tell you something just happened to me today. And he said, I said, I know I'm on your executive committee, and I said, and all of a sudden now I'm unemployed. And you probably don't want an unemployed guy on your executive committee. He said, oh, hell, Robert, you got plenty of time on your hands now. I got plenty of stuff you can do. I want you to go start a membership drive for the EMBDC. I want you to do this. I want you to do that. I want you to do that. And he just gave me all this stuff to do from on the EMBDC board to take over and run, you know. He said, you got all this time on your hands now.
Not getting paid for it.
So not getting paid.
Not
for it.
getting paid for it, by the way.
So I said,
You became a
Okay.
non-profit volunteer.
I said, okay. Well, nearly weekly at that point, we were meeting the executive committee meetings with all these guys I just mentioned, and every other week we were traveling down to Laurel to meet with their board down there, or down to Hattiesburg, or to Tupelo, or wherever. We were really involved trying to get our town involved on the state level at that point. And so I was traveling with them, you know, and we were talking about what had happened to me while we're riding in a van, you know, and they said, well, Rob, this is what you need to do. They said, you got the expertise in glass, you know how to do it. People not buying glass from Jimmy Barn down there, they were buying glass from you.
Right.
Said, you need to start your own company, and then we're gonna tell you how to do it, you know. And so I was getting all this advice from these guys, and I said, well, look, you know, I've got a non-compete clause with him. I said, he said, yeah, and he's gonna sue you just as soon as you open up. He said, but you're gonna turn around and sue him for all that money he owes you that he ain't paid you yet. So you go on and open up, and don't you worry about that part of it. And so,
Advice.
so anyway,
You're
anyway, so I said,
Yeah.
you know, okay, and he said, what you need to be doing is working on your business plan. You figure out how much cash you're gonna need, what kind of equipment you're gonna need, all this kind of stuff to start a business. And we're gonna help you put a business plan together, and they did. And they sent me out there was a guy at that time named Doc Braswell that was out at MCC, and that's what he did for people, was kind of help them with startup companies. And what he would do, he had this kind of format that basically just, once you filled in the blanks, you kind of knew that you had everything together that you needed to be able to start, you know. So they put me in touch with him, and I did all that, and over the next month or two, all of a sudden I'm ready to open up a business. So on the side, I'd call all these guys that I've been working with all those years and said, look, I'm going to start this company. And
look, I have to intervene here. So this is the part where Justin's like, you did not do that. Oh my God. I vividly remember. And
Brother, sister love.
Oh yeah, 100%. I have the most vivid memory of sitting at our kitchen table, sitting in your lap, and you, not me, of course, Justin, he was, not me, was trying to figure out a logo. But I remember I was 8 years old, 9 years old, 8 years old, sitting in your lap, and I remember you trying to like sketch the logo, and you were like, what would you do? And I don't remember exactly, but I just have the most vivid memory of me sitting in your lap and you sketching out this glass ink logo. And it's embedded in me.
That's exactly how it happened.
Like literally, it is embedded in me.
That's exactly how
it may
it
not.
happened.
I was 8, so it may not have exactly happened that way, Justin. I know, but that's how I remember it.
Well, I did do some doodling on a piece of paper.
I just remember
you know.
there's so much like doodling. You know, when you're an entrepreneur, you're doing your own thing, and you gotta have a logo.
But just so you know, I did get a professional that helped me perfect that into the logo.
I know that.
But-
I'm just saying.
but-
You ain't got to tell it all.
Yeah.
But that's all right. But we did kind of have a rough idea of what it
Yeah.
was, and
So then glass ink started.
Yeah.
so we opened the doors, and I had to have a building to start in. It's kind of another funny story. A&B Electric, they in Meridian was well known. Jimmy Alexander was on the executive committee, and they knew I was looking for a place to open up this business. Well, A&B Electric had grown to the point where they were building them a new building at the time. And so the building that they were in, that they started in, was a building that Henry Burns owned, because Burns was the B of A&B, Alexander and Burns.
Mm-hmm.
And anyway, so they had that little building that they had started in. It had some estimating offices and a little reception area and a little warehouse behind it. And I said, that's perfect. And he said, you need to go see David Burns about it. And so I did, and went and saw David. And David says, yeah, Daddy owns that building now. So, I said, well, what do you think they might want for rent? He said, well, he probably about $400 a month. I said, oh, that's perfect, to start off with $400 a month in a little building, He said, but now Daddy owns it, so you got to go see Daddy. You got to make Daddy happy. Henry Burns was a kind of a really well-known person there in Meridian that at one time was one of the wealthiest people in the state of Mississippi, and they had Burns all the way on to all
Yeah,
this.
yeah.
It's a pretty big deal, and I had met him and knew him a little bit, and so anyway, I go see Henry, and I said, Mr. Burns, he said, I'm going to start a new company, and Jimmy Alexander said, they're about to move into their new building, and I went and talked to your son David and asked me if y'all might consider renting me this building as a place to start. He said, but David told me that it's you owned it, and that you might want about $400 a month for it, but I was going to have to come down there and make you happy. And he said, well, Robert, he said, if you're going to make me happy, I got to have $500. I said, deal.
I ain't gonna make it either.
I said, deal. So I paid him $500 a month, and that's where we started, was in the old A&B Electric building down on B Street. And like I say, it was real small, and really, right out of the first day we opened up, the guy named Rick Snowden in town, who was a contractor there in town, came in and brought me a set of plans. The nicest building being built in Meridian at that time was the Riley Foundation building on Poplar Springs Drive, and B.B.
I love how
Archer.
you rattle that off.
B.B.
Wow,
Archer
just-
was an architect on it, and he was a friend of mine,
That's
and
awesome.
they said, B.B. want you to do this job, and it was a really nice glass job. In fact, it had like a $35,000 pair of bronze doors with a patina finish, which is still there today, and to this day, that's the most expensive pair of doors that I have ever
Shut up.
I was
sold.
gonna
The
say,
memory
in
on
the
this
glass
man, I
business.
swear to
that was
God.
like late 90s, early 2000s.
That was in 1999. That was
99.
right when we started.
Wow.
They gave me the job, and right out the gates of my very first day of Glass Incorporated's existence, I get the nicest job in town. And they give it to me and said, look, we just get us a price on it, and then we need to start working on shop drawings, and let's get this thing going.
Time to make a name for us.
Yeah.
So we did that, and we actually won an ABC award then.
Won a
Off
state
the
award right
off the
off
very
first
first job we did, and to this day I've got a plaque of that building, like they would give
You
you with
should
the
have.
Little Eagles and all that from where we won that award. So, But anyway, and that's really kind of where it took off, you know. And then a couple of years time, it really started taking off job wise. And Yates, again, the Yates connection, you know, and they had us doing condo work, and there's still some casino work going on still at that time. And then at that point, because of some of the big jobs that we had done, now I got other big contractors that I don't even know that have seen what we've done, and now they're calling wanting me to price their work too. So I start doing work for all kind of people.
Who did
And
that
then
job? Last thing.
You know, well,
Yeah,
you know, and
people
then
ask and
and it
people-
just kept growing and growing,
Yeah.
and the jobs kept getting bigger and bigger, and even to the turquoise job, which is kind of over my shoulder. I don't think you can see it in this
I
picture,
don't know if we can or not,
but
I
it's
can.
over my shoulder across this bay, and
And it's beautiful.
when that
It's our
building
baby.
came out, it was the two towers together was about a $30 million glass job, and I'm still relatively young when, you know,
Yeah.
when all that's happening, and
2008, 2007, roughly.
well, when we started figuring on it, it was probably around 2005 and 6 when we probably started working on shop drawings and that
But
kind
by
of stuff.
completion, it was before I graduated, so it was like 2008.
Yeah, more than that. I think we were
Nine.
probably still on it in 2009
Like
on the
freshman
second building.
year of high school. I mean, freshman year of college, senior year of high school.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But anyway, it's a really unique system in that building. It's called E-wall, which is to this day that's the biggest E-wall job, which is a unique curtain wall system. It doesn't have any. It's a metal curtain wall, aluminum curtain wall system, but the exterior of it is a rubber gasket. And when we saw that EFCO had that system and the issues that they were having with some of the other buildings that we had done, from the salt air kind of corroding the painted finish on
Yeah.
some of this aluminum, we thought, well, gosh, if we could replace that with a rubber gasket, you know, they would eliminate that problem.
Saw a need there.
So we went and pitched to the developer about it, and it was a little bit more expensive, but in the long run, it was going to be less from a maintenance standpoint. And so we pitched that, and we ended up doing that E-wall job. And to this day, it's the largest E-wall job that's ever been done in the country. And
Wow. So-
I remember going into the meeting with Yates, brought me in there, and when I'm first pitching this, and the developer says, Robert, he said, this is a giant glass job. I said, are you gonna be able to do this job? I said, yes, sir.
Damn right I
You
can.
bet your ass I am.
Ain't no doubt.
And to be honest, I really didn't have a damn clue whether I was gonna be able to get enough
But
people
got
to do
real
it.
tight.
Yeah, real tight, real tight. But I said, I managed to get that.
You got
Yes,
it
sir.
done,
Hell yeah, I can do it.
Hell
Yes,
yeah.
sir.
And he said, okay, that's all I wanted to know. And to this day, even this morning, I talked to that developer this morning about a new project he's working on, and we've been good friends ever since. And every time he's got big projects and stuff, he wants me to do it. And it's just, well, I've always had a ability and I guess just a confidence, because we've done a lot of complicated and big jobs over the years, that, and the crew the people that we have working for us, that like the Mitchells and the Dales and the Buddies and all these folks have been with us so long in this business. There's no project ever that we've not been able to do.
Yeah.
It may be something new, unique, something different that we've never done before, but
You love a challenge. The
I-
whole team.
I just
loves
knew
a
that
challenge.
whatever it is, we're gonna be able to do it.
Yeah.
So,
You know.
what is your process whenever you have, like, all right, say someone like Bill Yates comes and says, I want you to do the largest, you know, I don't know what you call it, but
E-wall.
E-wall, largest E-wall ever done in America, and it's gonna be also the biggest job you ever done. You got it, and you're like, yeah, good. Where'd you do from there? You call all your guys and like, all right, we're gonna have to brainstorm on this. How we
Yeah.
gonna get this done?
Well, of course, EFCO, which was one of our big suppliers, it manufactured that particular product. At that time, there were still some really, really good people in that company that were really good curtain wall people from an engineering standpoint, and we were able to use those guys and get their expertise on how this needed to be done and all, and to really be able to put out a finished product that's still a showcase today, you know, and it's I do credit those guys. I credit our guys for being in the field and all the hard work that we spent on it, In fact, your big brother, Justin, after all the years working on a city service truck in high school, said, "Dad, I want to go work on a commercial job somewhere." I said, "Okay."
All right.
We sent you down to Turquoise and put you out on the 28th floor on the outside of the building on the swing stage. And so I called him that night after his first day down. I said, "How you like that commercial work, son?"
I'm surprised he answered. I figured he'd be asleep.
He says he still has nightmares about that. He's
So-
like, I am not one to be held offside of a building.
So that's one thing we have to do in our profession is get on the outside of the building. And that's when you're selling it, you ain't got to get out there. So I'm the sales guy.
But
So
it takes everybody to come full circle. You've got to have the marketing, the sales, the build. There's so many different pieces that make everything come together.
That's
so,
right. That's
you
right.
know.
So it's definitely a team thing. Our
It's a team
all of
thing.
our success goes back to our team of our people that we've had for all these years, just like FL Crane.
100%.
FL Crane.
Like,
Same.
so much of your story, I'm like thinking back whenever we did the 3-part series of
Yeah.
FL Crane, talking to my granddad, my dad, and it was like so much of what I'm listening to. I'm like just grinning like
I
hell,
know it.
kind of laughing in my head. I'm like,
Because it's the same story, it's a
It's
different
like-
product.
it's-
ain't it?
Exactly.
It's so similar. It's crazy, especially you and my granddad and the way y'all met. That's something special.
And
For
see,
sure.
I met your dad before I ever met you. Way before I ever
Yeah.
met you. Like 2 years before I ever met you. I knew your dad first.
I'll tell you some of the really big takeaways that I've had listening to you today, Mr. Robert, is you in a good way, have used all the people you met, all the relationships, all the, people crossing paths. Like, you figured out a way to tie it all together and make it work for the best of you and your team's advantage, which is, for everyone involved's advantage, but you capitalized on like, hey, my uncle in Greenwood knew this guy in Meridian, and just, that's amazing.
Well, it's got to be a lot of luck involved with some of that too. Now you got to be some hard work where you get out there and you go see the people and you do the work outside of on the extracurricular stuff like the ABCs and
A
stuff
lot
like
of
that.
people won't even ask,
But- But it's really, to
It's
be
a
honest with you,
personality.
people, it's having a genuine, caring heart about what you do. You got to be a genuine person. As far as that's what people believe you when you talk to them. If you're genuine,
that's right.
You can
and
catch
they
it
know you
right
blowing
off the
smoke
bat.
when you blowing smoke.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
That fast.
That
So
fast.
if you just be a
Just say it.
genuine guy and you just tell them like it is and you work hard and you do what you say you're going to do. I preach this. I was preaching to a new sales guy we hired this past week. By gosh, if you tell Miss Jones you're going to be there Thursday at 10 o'clock in the morning, you better be there Thursday at 10 o'clock in the
That's
morning,
right.
or you
That's
better
right.
call her and let her know that you got a flat and you're going to be, you're going to be 10, 15 getting there. You got to do what you say you're going to do, and you got to back it up, and you got to be a man of your word,
That's right.
and you got to do what's right every time, even if it hurts. Even if it hurts. And there's times in the construction business, there's stuff out there where you're going, yeah, man,
it's
I have to
gonna
go out there and
hurt.
fix that. This is going to hurt. Man, I got to go take that out. And I'm going to have all these people working on weekends trying to fix this. But you do it every time, every single time. And people, you're like the Bill Yates of the world, realize that. And that's who they want working for them.
That's
It's
right.
somebody that they can depend on that's going to do it.
Yeah.
So I already know the answer to this, but I know you probably haven't had that talk, what you just told me. You probably haven't had that with every one of your employees, but I had to write a quote, a statement for FL Crane to put on their social media or whatever, and you had to kind of like write about why you chose this quote, and then write the quote or whatever. But I had wrote on there, like, my dad and my granddad never really like told people this, but just leading by example. There's been like a code of conduct at FL Crane that kind of developed, and it is, you tell the truth 100% of the time, no matter how bad it hurts, exactly like what you just said. And I mean, I can see that. I mean, I've been through glazing. I know your guys, and I don't know if you preached it to them or if they've just picked up on it. But like,
well, I've done some of both. I mean, I've dang sure preached it to them over the years, and like I say, I've just hired a new sales guy this week. I gave him that same speech this week, you know, and it's just because it's the truth. I mean, you got to do. People got to know that they can depend on you to do it and do it right. And if another thing, construction is not a perfect science, and you know that. Every job there's something that's going to go wrong with every job that you do. And what makes you stand out above other people is when something goes wrong and there's a problem, you need to run to the problem and get it over with. Run to it, fix the problem, and get it over with. Don't run from it. Because if you run from it, it's going to fester and it's going to turn into something much worse.
Can you say that one more time?
I said, when you have a problem, you run to the problem and you get it over with. Every time you do that.
Look into the camera. Add more effect.
One more time. Run to the problem.
Be a problem solver, not a problem bringer-upper.
Bringer-upper.
Yeah. Don't come and say, look, this is the problem. Say, hey, there was a problem, but I got it fixed. And this is how I did it.
Well, if it was easy, everybody could do it.
That's right.
So when our business is not an easy business, and it's the ones that can get it done and fix the problems and get them over with, that's why we have so much repeat business. And just like your company, y'all do repeat business over and over again with the same customer for years and years and years. It's because they can depend on you to do it. You know, that's it. It's not really a secret. It's just a way of doing it. You got to live that. You know.
I feel like exactly what you just said. You got to live it.
Yeah.
100%.
Yep.
So I did a little cheating and called both your sons on the way down here tonight. And they said, definitely ask him about if he ever broke some glass in front of Garrett's.
If I broke some glass in front of Garrett's? Well, yes, I have.
Ask Robert about whether he broke some glass out there.
I hate to mention him now because I'm since friends with him now, so I don't want to. If he sees this, I want you to know there's no hard feelings about all this.
Oh Lord!
I have no idea where this is going. This is like text messages.
This is when I'll tell this story. I was at Mississippi Paint Glass. My office faced the front driveway. When the people pull up to the business, I could see who pulled up there. Well, I'm down there working late, you know, because I was the estimator, the sales guy, the project manager. I did all of those. So I'm down there like at 5:30 in the afternoon. Everybody else had gone home, and this guy had come by. He owned a sporting goods store there in town. He had come by sometime during the day and bought a piece of glass. I mean, it was a little piece of double strength glass. It was probably a $7, $8 piece of glass, and bought it. Well, he measured it wrong, and so when we cut it, he went to try to put it in that afternoon. It didn't fit. Well, he comes down there and he pulls up out front. He comes up to the door. He knows we're closed, but he can see me in there, and he's knocking on the door. So I get up, and I go open the door, and he says, "This piece of glass is the wrong size, and I've got to have it. I've got to have another one." And I said, "Well, Mr. Garrett," I said, "everybody's gone home for the day." I said, in order to cut a piece of double strength that size, I've got to pull a 4 by 8 foot sheet of glass that's an 1/8 inch thick out of a crate, and that you can't do by yourself and lay on a table and cut it. I said, and I'm not a real good glass cutter anyway. But I said, but I can't do that, but I'll do it first thing in the morning. Hey, and he said, well, he could argue with me a minute. Said, well, I got to have this today and all that. And I said, well, I'm sorry, I'm not going to be able to do it, but I'll do it first thing in the morning for you. So he turns around, goes back towards his truck. I'm finna turn around and I'm going back in my office to finish what I was doing. And he comes back, takes that piece of glass and just slams it down in front of our front door. You know, and shattered it in a million pieces. And he got in his truck and drove off. Well, hell, you don't think that didn't piss me off? Hell, I was a damn man. I went back there in that damn shop back there and I tried to find me some kind of cut off piece of glass that I can get out of there, and I get it and I get my damn truck and I go down there to his sporting goods damn store And I got to the front door and I took that piece of glass and I slammed that piece of glass down on the.
You gonna make me clean it up.
I've
You
never
gonna clean
heard
it
that
up,
story.
too.
I'm really glad you shared that.
Anyway, so CW, if you ever see this, no hard feelings over, but we made each other mad, but we sit by each other at the Writer Center now, so we're friends now.
Yeah. All right, that's awesome.
I have one more thing to talk about, or ask you about. So, throughout, the whole story that we've gotten this evening, I've heard, well, this guy, he was a representative or a big guy in this deal, and we're in the programs together, and so I heard there's a little buzz going around that Robert Smith might be running for mayor of Meridian in about 2024.
No. Although I was asked to be mayor one day.
That's what I heard.
Oh.
I mean, you'd be really good at it. You really would be.
That was really a funny thing. I mean, it was when it happened.
I think you've been a damn good one.
I was on the, I was young
I
too.
think you're more on the governor's scale than honestly. Just being honest.
I might run with Trump, something.
Hell.
There you go.
No. Politics, I do not care for politics at all. But,
Sales and
but
politics
you have
kinda
to
go hand in
be. You
hand.
have to be in politics to be in this
I'd rather
business. You have
help
to be,
candidates behind the scenes than I have to, be a.
somewhat to be in this business.
Because I'm afraid I would speak my mind too much, and I probably wouldn't last very long in politics.
I would be right beside you.
You would be, for sure.
Yeah.
But that is a funny story about them. That was when I was on the EMBDC board, and anyways, I get a call from Tommy Delaney one day, and on structural steel said, Robert, we'd like to invite you to a thing at lunch. A group of businessmen are there. And
Y'all ain't got a Hardy.
I was pretty young. No, we didn't go to the Hardy. It was Crescent City Grill at the time. And we'd like for you to come. And I said, okay. So I get there and I walk in there. Well, this Jimmy Alexander, Tommy Delaney, Hoot Gibson, it's a big Ronnie Massey, all the main business people around town, the main guys were around town. We're in this table. And when I come in, when they kind of ushered me down to the end of the table, at the end of the table, my first thought was, they finna stick me with this damn bill. What they this damn lunch bill. And so I sit down there and we ordered and all that kind of stuff. And then the waitress walks out there. We was in a little room by ourselves. And Tommy was at the other end of the table. And he says, well, the reason we're here today, he said, we've had a real issue with our mayor getting along with our local economic development group and the city council and the supervisors, and they're just all in disarray. They're all fighting amongst each other, and unless we can get the whole dang group together and start going in the same direction, then our community's never going to grow. And I said, I agree with that. And he said, and the one thing the piece that we're missing is a good, strong mayor that can get out there and pull those pieces together, and let's get them going in the same direction. And I said, yeah, I agree with that. And they said, and that's why we're here today, because Robert, we think you would make a good mayor. Well, that just floored me. I just kind of started laughing. I just started laughing.
You expecting they're going to ask for donations or something?
So they're all like leaning in, looking right at me when he said
Wait
that.
on your response.
He said, and we'll support you,
The cameras are waiting, snapping.
And I just started laughing. I said, guys, I got way too many skeletons in my closet to run for politics, to run for mayor.
Yeah.
So I said, I appreciate it.
Y'all don't want them
Thank
picking
you,
me
but
I'll take you duck hunting though.
well, anyway, so that was kind of a funny
Oh,
story.
shoot,
We laughed.
that's
I've
funny.
laughed about it with a couple of them
That's funny.
since then about it. But
Oh goodness.
I had no idea that's what was coming
That's
at that point.
hilarious.
So.
Well, I know I've just really gotten a lot out of this. I think
I know, me too.
like using your connections, kind of taking care of those relationships, the people that you come through by business, not that you're, discarding anyone, but those connections that you meet in business and in industry.
Being genuine about it too.
Don't let the bullshit be bullshit.
Exactly.
Right?
Well, y'all, I know that even though I've heard the story 100 times, I've got a lot out of it. I always get a lot out of it. I think, obviously, I know I'm biased, but my dad's got a lot of really good advice to give, especially to young entrepreneurs, young business people in general. What do you think, Cody?
I feel like if you could not if you go and listen to this podcast and you can't take several things that are detrimental to opening up a new business or, just being in an industry, and you can learn from so many things that Robert just spoke on, and if you can't, it's probably not for you.
Well, it's just the hustle in general. I
mean,
do remember
there's
being
so
little.
many points I can take from this.
Yeah, I do. Like, one thing that I do remember being like a little girl, I remember my dad, because he was involved, like he said, he was involved in so many different like avenues of the industry, ABC, whatever it was, very involved. I remember that being little. I remember the hustle, and I remember him like literally starting from nothing and growing his business to what it is today. And I swear to God, I just got chill bumps. I love it. It gets me going. It's what's helped me become the businesswoman that I am, which I don't know.
What you didn't know is he had done it 2 times before that.
Right, yeah.
He started from nothing twice before.
I know.
That was his 3rd go around.
I mean, I'm talking about overcoming adversity every single time. So it's very, very inspiring, and I hope that y'all got a lot out of it today. Is there any last advice that you'd like to give our listeners, Dad?
Support these two right here. Support these two.
So he
Support
doesn't
the
have to.
podcast, the glamping thing, which I'm not even sure what that really is, but support all that, and MPEC and FL Crane and all that, and I hope we catch some fish tomorrow.
That's right.
That's right.
Hey, that's coming from the real glass master.
Yeah.
All right, man. Thank you.
Love you.
Love you too.
All right, y'all. If you liked what you heard today, you know the rule. Just go check us out on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, all the things. Like, subscribe, and give us feedback. Check us out. Tell us what you want to hear. If there's somebody that you would like to hear from us, let us know, and we'll get them on the show. All right.
Hey, before we get out of here, baby, tell them what day it is.
It's demo day,
It's
y'all.
demo day.
Y'all tune in to episode 2. Can't wait to see you till then. Peace.
Later.